Good afternoon, everybody. If you can just please proceed, take your seats, and we are ready to get started. Thank you for braving our Boston traffic and our Veterans Day parade that we just had occur outside. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is David Leonard. I am president of the Boston Public Library and will be your moderator and guest host for this evening. So today we are gathering for the 2025 Druker Award and Lecture. I have had the honor and privilege of either introducing or moderating this program for now over 10 years. And we are thrilled to continue doing this in partnership now with the Boston Public Library Fund and our longtime sponsor, after whose family the award and lecture is named. We are, as always, joined this afternoon by Ron Druker, who we will hear from later in the program when it is time to present the award. The Druker Award and Public Lecture series is focused on the understanding and appreciation of design and architecture in civic society, a democratization, if you will, of access to specialized knowledge which forms our built and lived-in environment. Speakers are selected for their outstanding and important contributions to the world of design, art, and architecture, and this year's awardee is no exception. And what better place to host this series than the Boston Public Library, although we may have to up our design game after today's presentation. The award itself, to my right here, is a bust modeled on the original griffins surrounding the corners of the McKim building on Copley Square, which, as everyone knows, signifies great defensive strength and the power to ward off evil. You can also see one of them up close in the interior of the fiction section above us on the first floor of this renovated Boylston Street building. Our thanks go to members of the BPL staff who, in coordination with the Druker team and our colleagues at the Fund, made this event possible. For more information about this and other programs, you can check out bpl.org or bplfund.org. Our program today will run just under about 90 minutes. We'll start with a presentation from our honoree, followed by a brief interview between our guest and myself, and we will have time for audience Q&A and conclude with the presentation of the Druker Griffin. Our choice this year is a designer and creative personality at the top of his field in design work. Ken Fulk has reimagined how we gather in a contemporary world by leading the creation of 3 modern-day social clubs: the Battery in San Francisco, the Quinn here in Boston, the Commodore Perry Estate in Austin. In 2018, Ken founded St. Joseph's Arts Society, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting local artists and creatives that revitalized historic landmarks in San Francisco and Provincetown, Massachusetts. My favorite moniker was that Ken was christened the Incredible Fulk by The Economist. He has been a fixture on Architectural Digest's AD 100, Elle Decor's A-List, and Lux's Gold List. He was inducted into Hospitality Design's Platinum Circle Hall of Fame and was recently applauded as Design LA's Living Legend Award. He's been a winner of multiple restaurant and bar design awards and was twice nominated for the James Beard Design Award. Please welcome to the podium, Ken Fulk.
Hello, I can see a few of you. I'm not a podium guy, so I will stand here and talk a bit. Thank you, David, very much for having me. Thank you to the Drukers who are so kind by inviting me here and bestowing me with this award. I moved to Boston in 1989, right out of college. I lived at 208 Commonwealth Avenue that I visited yesterday. I like to say, I was sharing yesterday that I was living beyond my means, which is a theme throughout my life, in a a floor-through parlor apartment directly across the street from the Algonquin Club. And I would come by and visit this esteemed library, and I have a pretty big imagination, but never did I imagine that I would be standing here or that I would play some role in the fabric of this city. It's deeply meaningful to me, and it's such a great privilege. Before we get into the presentation, I was never trained as a designer. I sort of came out of the womb as this funny alien of a kid who just instinctively knew that life would be better if we crafted more interesting, more meaningful, more special experiences. So from my earliest childhood, I was the orchestrator of all of our family holidays. I picked out what dress my mother would wear. It was just who I was. And somehow, after I left Boston and moved to California, I made up a life. And who I was as a little kid suddenly became my life's work, my life's calling. Today we still craft experiences. We don't design restaurants. We don't design, yes, we do, but hotels or homes or planes or boats. We really create living experiences for people to imprint memories. And so I'm going to share with you some of that work now so you get a better idea. This, by the way, is our studio in San Francisco. It is called the Magic Factory. I always had this idea that I would have this sort of Warhol-like factory. When we bought the building, I bought the building back in 2007. I had no idea if I could afford to buy a building. So the lower level was my warehouse, the middle 2 levels was our studio space, and I lived on the top floor. But first stop, Boston. As I said, I moved here as a young man and then came back and have been involved in a few projects. Many of you may have known. I know some of you directly from the Quinn House, formerly the Algonquin Club. So here it is in all of its glory, that beautiful McKim-Mead and White building, a cousin to the Public Library's own beautiful McKim-Mead and White. The first thing we always do when we start a project with a historic structure is, the mantra is, don't screw it up. Because I'm always afraid, because that could happen. We all watch it happen. This building, despite its architectural integrity and history, there were a lot of warren of spaces that were either underused, not used. It really hadn't been thoroughly updated, so we had to take it thoroughly apart. This is, for those who may not have been, the entry. Those beautiful onyx columns are original. That staircase is original. And that might be about it. This is called Scotty's. I wanted to call it, it used to be called the Ladies' Lounge, because women originally were not members of the Algonquin, and they had a special entry and a special room that they were meant to gather in. Can you imagine? And so I thought, well, let's embrace that and still call it the Ladies' Lounge with a wink and a nod, but I got outvoted. So we called it, and I will stop and say in every project that we do, we are sort of the creative engine. It doesn't mean that we have the only and the best idea. It just means we sort of are the center point for all of the creative energy. So we have in my business, we have an art department that creates branding and graphics. We do everything from plateware to uniforms, anything that a guest would to the building would experience. So this is called Scotty's after F. Scott Fitzgerald's daughter. It's nicknamed Scotty. This space used to be an air conditioning shaft. It was filled with equipment. I had the bright idea that we could clear that equipment out. And I must say, we should all give a great thanks to Paul and Sandy Edgerly, my good friends who couldn't be here today, who have given this beautiful gift to Boston, because it was a big, heavy lift, and a lot of people wouldn't have jumped out of the plane with me. But we did. And so over this space is a retractable sort of conservatory-like skylight. Above your head here, I had the bright idea of taking the original chandelier from the dining room, the original Algonquin Club dining room, and hanging it sort of a la Phantom of the Opera over this space. The most historically intact room was the reading room. I go there, I'm so humbled by this beautiful room. However, this room was utterly dismantled. We had to find someone to recreate the historic wallpaper because the whole room had to be sort of ripped apart to be put back together. Most of the furniture in this room is original Davenport furniture. Some of you may remember when you would say, I have a Davenport, that was really like saying I have a give me a Band-Aid or give me a Kleenex. They were a manufacturer that here in Boston that made beautiful quality furniture. And this furniture was from Davenport, and we had it reupholstered and refinished to go back into this room. This is what we call Bondo. It's the original dining room of the Algonquin Club. That is a Donald Limpsky chandelier hanging sort of this upside down tree that hangs over this glorious space. We really kept the integrity of the space. All the paneling was here. Of course, it's been sort of hand rubbed and ebonized. Sort of beautiful ceiling. These are Candida Hofer photographs. Art is a major part of the Quinn. This space is the newest space in the Quinn. It's called Luna Sol. One of the things that we've done is sort of, and very interesting that we've done in collaboration with the Edgerleys, is Paul likes to say every maybe 5 years you need a new amusement park ride to keep people excited. And so Luna Sol is the newest restaurant. There are 4 restaurants inside of the Quinn. This one is very vibrant. It's inspired by Latin and South American cultures and food. And so it's my favorite place to dine at the Quinn. The Four Seasons. I used to go to the Bristol Lounge, which I know everyone dearly misses, before I would go to the ballet. And again, never did I thought, my husband likes to say he got fired in the Four Seasons lobby. And so a place that I never thought that I would have something to do with. We were tasked with sort of reinventing this somewhat, I don't want to offend anyone, but uninspired 1980s kind of brick building across the park that really felt like it had no relationship to the public gardens. And so how do you do that with, working within the constraints of what you have? So we put a new facade on the entryway there at the porte cochere, and then really reinvented all the public spaces at the hotel to really reference its setting. So you can see sort of created these stone-clad walls, the beautiful black and white marble floors. This is the check-in desk with a mural literally reflecting the public gardens. Here you see a series of rooms that one of the things, you used to walk into the Four Seasons and it sort of felt a little bit anonymous, kind of corporate in my mind. And we wanted it to feel much more like a grand residence that you had arrived at. And I think we did a pretty good job. This is part of the cafe that's there called Coterie. The bar at Coterie. I have a lot to show you, so I'm going to keep moving. This is a fun little thing we did behind that mural at the check-in desk. You can open it up, and inside is this purple lacquered Willy Wonka candy closet. So if you haven't, go in there, and they'll let anyone get candy. Contessa. I was just there last night with my good friends, the Bloombergs, and it is on top of what everyone sort of knew as the Ritz. I would go there, put on my coat and tie, and walk down Comm Ave, where they had a band, and you could dance on top of the Ritz. It's now the Newberry, and once again, never in my wildest imagination did I think I would play a role in that building, but here we go. This was really envisioned, sort of that space had become somewhat abandoned on top of the building. It became the Taj, and then of course the Newberry. We really wanted it to feel transportive. It's utterly different than the rest of the hotel. It's a little bit of almost sort of this resort-like quality to it. I wanted it to live up to the view. And so here you can see the bar, the wonderful tables that all look out to the beautiful city of Boston. probably the most coveted table. You'll notice throughout the Quinn, we work a lot with artists that we commission. The Trump Loyal tented room, which is sort of your arrival if you come up from the elevators. Moving chapters, period dramas. Our latest book is called The Movie in My Mind. I was never trained. I was just talking with Ron about this. And so I can't even draw a circle. And so the only way that I've ever been able to express myself is through words. Early days when there were now we have 100 people that work for us. We have studios in Los Angeles and New York and San Francisco, and we have highly skilled people that can help bring these things to life. But the only way I had to bring them to life was through talking, which I do a lot. But we began to write those down and create scripts that really became the backbone of our projects. And so in the book called The Movie in My Mind, because I've always seen our projects like movies, they're very cinematic, one of the chapters is period dramas. I am not only sort of a little bit of a son of Boston for a formative period of time. Provincetown is where my husband and our dogs, if you happen to follow us on Instagram, everyone's always like, why don't your dogs have their own Instagram? I'm like, because no one would follow me if my dogs had my own Instagram. Is Provincetown, where I first visited when I lived here and discovered it. I was mesmerized. I'm like, how does this place exist? Back in the mid-2000s, we had moved to San Francisco in 1994, but we kept coming back. And then in the early 2000s, we bought a house in Provincetown impulsively, much like many things we do. Then about 13, 14 years ago, we bought this house that sits on the harbor. It was sort of the Grey Gardens of Provincetown. It was a beloved character whose portrait hangs in our house, but he also was a great collector, let's call him that, and not a hoarder of things. And so we restored the house and moved into it, and now we spend more days of the year in Massachusetts than we do anywhere else. Our garden looks very different now. This was the first year we moved in. We kept the house as anywhere there's cracked paint or slanted floors, or we kept all the patina. I feel pretty deeply that, it's easy to take the exterior of these buildings and have them look historic. But frankly, for me, the interiors of these places, they deeply matter. They're the record of the people who came before you. And, I want to see their footsteps on the stair treads. I don't argue with people who want to change things, but I feel like history gets erased one granite countertop at a time, and I just sort of can't bear it. So we don't live that way. We live in a crooked, humble house filled with things that came out of my warehouse or I found in Brimfield. It really isn't so much designed as it just happened. This is a wonderful mural that got painted by a young man who works with us exclusively as an artist, and he came and lived in our house for 2 weeks in the depths of winter to paint this mural of the harbor. Our little kitchen, it's a little different now. We've updated it just with some fun wallpaper, but we didn't change it. We kept it. You can see the old painted floors. That was all there. Probably our collective favorite room, and now my dogs have taken it over, so you'll often see them in that bed, and with the beautiful harbor and flag in the distance. One of the many, this little house has 6 bedrooms in it, and so you're all welcome. I invite everyone to come because I want everyone to experience Provincetown. Your feet might hang off the end of the beds, but it's great. I tell people, because they do come to see me and they all think I'm a fancy designer, and I'm like, you need to know the bathroom is down the hall, the best shower is outside. It's not a fancy thing. Another incredible historic project that David mentioned that does have a small private club as part of it is the Commodore Perry Estate. This is a 1920s mansion that it's set in the center of Austin near the university. It was built and then became a school and then sort of sat empty for a bit. We reimagined it. We built 56 new hotel rooms in an inn, created a small private club. It opened in 2020 in the height of COVID, an odd time to open a hotel and have a club, but it's been pretty well received. This is inside the mansion, the little library, the living room. This is the sunroom there. This is all in the mansion itself. We kept all the original sort of rooms in the mansion so that it felt like if Edgar Perry, who was the man who built the house, had come, he would recognize it. And so this is one of the rooms. It actually used to be the former staff rooms, and it's named after a character named Laverne, so it's called the Laverne Suite. It's covered entirely in this Pierre Frey fabric and this wonderful deco bathroom. One of the more remarkable, sort of iconic moments is the round pool and this Commodore Perry yellow that we developed. I mean, who doesn't want a round pool? We also built a restaurant named after Edgar Perry's wife, Ludi. It's called Ludi's. Here you see it. A private residence called Domaine de la Cavalière. Clients bought, this property maybe 15 years ago. I went with them to see it. I thought we were just viewing a property to go look at it. We went and signed papers, and I knew they were going to come back that summer. It was in our hands. We still operate this property, so there are vineyards, there's olive oil, so we had to get tractors. I had to find house managers. We had to find farmers to run this property. Every year we do a new restoration project there, so they come back to discover a place they may never even seen on their own property. This is the original facade of the house. We added this beautiful arbor, even adding this sort of cistern you see here in the foreground. You can't really tell where the new and the old begin. This is a 500-year-old farm. This is inside the bergerie. This is where the sheep were kept. The fireplace is so big you can literally sit in it. There's a seat in it, and the shepherd used to be there with the sheep. This is upstairs in a more contemporary part in the family kitchen. The primary bedroom, one of the bathrooms. This property sleeps, I think, 30 people. We took an old outbuilding that was a workshop and just dirt floored building. We turned it into a guest house and a gym and with a hammam. They came from Morocco and lived on the property and cut each of these tile by hand. It's amazing. Next door, if that's not enough, a few years after, they bought the neighboring property, which is a 12th century monastery. This is it. We restored it, and now it hosts residencies for artists. They are very supportive of musicians and writers, but you can also come and be a guest if you're a good friend. I know. So this is interesting. This is, again, something that I sort of pinch myself. Ron and I were just talking about that. He said he's going to have dinner here soon. It is in the former American Embassy building in the center of Mayfair. It is a Saarinen-designed building. It was sort of out of place. I think the Londoners all really didn't like it because there was this sort of brutalist-looking building sitting inside the historic Grosvenor Square with all of these beautiful historic buildings. Now it's all polished. The Americans sold it. I'll give you some, spill a little tea. The Americans sold it to the Qataris, who developed the building. They did a beautiful job. After we sold it to the Qataris, there's a giant eagle on the front of this building. It's huge. And the Americans asked the Qataris, they're like, well, can we take the eagle? It's our eagle. And they're like, no, we bought it with the building. So the eagle is still on the building. But inside of this, so Carbone is a cult restaurant in New York, a tiny little West Village restaurant. I met them when the restaurant first opened, maybe 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and we've begun to take this cult restaurant kind of around the globe. This is the first and only restaurant in London. It just opened in October. This is the little sort of bar and cafe that's on the top floor. So this is all inside the former American embassy. This is the staircase that leads you down to the restaurant, because the whole restaurant is underground. When you go, you can look for me in the mural. I'm down there in the bottom. By the way, this mural gets all drawn in my studio and then hand painted. Here's the downstairs bar. It's very sexy, this place. If anybody needs a reservation, talk to me. They're impossible to get into. It's sort of by design. Casadana. So in Miami, we took over the original Miami Women's Club. I also wanted to call it the Women's Club, but they wouldn't let me. And so we named it Casadana. This is a project that we've done a few projects with sort of an impresario named Dave Grutman and a musician named Pharrell. We did the Good Time Hotel, which is a big project there in Miami. We did a restaurant called Swan, and this is Casadana in this historic building. It sits right on this sort of intercoastal waterway. It's a very pretty restaurant, awfully fun if you find yourself in Miami in the wintertime. My own house in San Francisco, I can't take much credit for any of our places that we live. It all sounds pretty, trust me, I know I'm the luckiest man on the planet, but we don't live in grand spaces. But this house is built in 1959 under a tent for 2.5 years. It was built for the head of psychiatry from UCSF, who had gone to Japan on a sojourn, a sabbatical for like 6 months, came back, was deeply moved by the architecture and the culture. He hired a hotshot young architect named Warren Callister and commissioned him to build a house. So Warren Callister was inspired by the cable cars, because the house just has these giant barrel vaults, and the ferry boats that went through the harbor. And the whole house has a very Japanese-like aesthetic. It feels like you're in Big Sur almost more than you are in the middle. We are in the highest street in the geographical center of San Francisco. And yes, I have a giraffe in my living room. So, but these are our gardens. There you can see all of the Golden Gate Bridge out to the Pacific Ocean, downtown San Francisco. It looks like Oz from where we sit. Dining room. My closet, which I've always had a great love of fashion and clothing. And so we took over a bedroom because the contractor, when they were helping us restore this house, when we got it, he had treated it like he had commissioned us. You'll appreciate this, Ron, but he had treated it like he had commissioned a sculpture. Nothing was changed. Every tile, every knob, every appliance was as if when he had had the house delivered to him in 1961, because you wouldn't touch up a painting. So we had to replace all the systems. But the contractor joked with me. He's like, "Can you live in a 5-bathroom, no-bedroom house? Because we don't use our bedroom as a loft," which is how he designed it. But my dressing room is one of the bedrooms, and I have these old haberdashery cabinets. So these are all filled with shoes, and all of my clothes hang all around. Very spoiled. A little shot of the bedroom, but the bedroom is a loft. So if you look out, you'd be looking at the big view, and that giraffe is looking you in the face. New traditions. So these are projects. I better hurry it up, right? Okay. These are projects where we really have created things pretty much from whole cloth. This is a great story. This is a house that we took 4.5 years to build, but I bought this house for clients sight unseen, which is a crazy thing to think about, but it's true. And so nothing in this house was original. It had to all be recreated. Like none of that, we built that from scratch. All of that, none of that existed. Smoke Tree, this house is on a property we were going to remodel and restore a grand property in Sonoma. The day before we began construction, it burned to the ground. So we had to rebuild it. And so this is all new. It's called Smoke Tree because one of the only things that survived was a smoke tree. They have a freestanding movie theater. Come on, so good. Casa Grande on the Sierra Cortez in Mexico. This is a 30,000 square foot house that is surrounded by water, and it sets on the water. In other words, it's man-made water that goes everywhere. To walk to your bedroom, you have to walk across water. This courtyard, so you walk in, and there's normally not a dining table. It is just a reflecting pool. The water drops, and you can have a dining table, a DJ. This is when we deliver a project, we have what's called a reveal. This has now become, I think, popular with folks to do, but we do it at a super crazy level. We had an all-female mariachi band. We custom-made these skirts. We had a fireworks display, a DJ. It's a very extravagant thing to give the clients the house. It's the first time they would see it. So that's the same pavilion where you saw the dining table earlier. Every moment matters, which is sort of my own personal mantra. Here, because we've always done sort of, if have taste, will travel. We do everything for clients. So Sean Parker, who was the original founder of Napster, the first president of Facebook, asked us to create a wedding for him. At some point when we have more time, I will tell you this is the most extravagant, most insane, scariest thing we have ever done, and maybe anyone will do in this sort of realm. It was a 5-day affair, 365 people, everyone with a custom couture costume made just for you, for you, for you. We sent tailors around the world. It was waiting for you when you arrived. We got everyone to and from the venues. It was insane. This was the rehearsal dinner. We had to change the location of the rehearsal dinner 48 hours before the rehearsal dinner after building a road to from Highway 1 to the ocean because the groom got carsick. I know. We built, none of this existed. We built a lake, we built that bridge. All of those costumes are all their couture. Everyone's different. They're all made for each guest. I know. It's insane. Yeah. And this is one day. So think about it. This was at our studio in San Francisco. I love to have a fun party. We hosted Mr. Jean-Paul Gaultier, who became a really good friend. The theme was heaven and hell. Those are the world's, according to Guinness Book of World Records, the most identical twins playing harps at the dinner upstairs. That was heaven. There's me, Dita Von Teese, and Jean-Paul, and Susie Minks. Dita Von Teese was a surprise for Jean-Paul. We came down from heaven into purgatory. A curtain drops. Jean-Paul screams, "Magnifique!" And Dita, and this was all a benefit for the museum, who the board had no idea that we were going to do this, and that Dita Von Teese was going to do what she did best for Jean-Paul. And so it was a bit shocking, but luckily I didn't get fired. But there we are watching Dita. Halakai, we don't only do homes and parties, we do all sorts of things. So this is a custom sailing yacht that we built for clients. It began in Amsterdam and got finished in England. It is with a naval architect named Andre Hoke. And it's all inspired by the rural traditions of Hawaii. So everything is hand carved, every fabric, every wood surface tells a story. We named the boat, we created the logo. Of course, we did all of this. It does race. I've been on the boat to race. It won its class at the America Cup Louis Vuitton races. Planes, we do planes. So this is called YOLO, you only live once. The whole idea being that he wanted to have as much fun traveling places as he, getting there as it was to be there once you had arrived. So this plane, which down to the China, we did the safety video, a really fun spoof that we had someone named Pam Am, who looks like a drag queen but isn't, spoof it. So building community. This was mentioned because back in 2016, I visited an abandoned church, St. Joseph's in San Francisco. It was just 2 blocks from my studio. I would drive by it every day. This building was built in 1913. When it was built, it was the largest Catholic church west of the Mississippi. It had a wealthy congregation that could afford to build this church. There was a church there prior that had been destroyed in the 1906 earthquake. This church was damaged in 1989. It was red tagged, meaning you couldn't occupy it. And it had a poor Filipino immigrant congregation that didn't have the capacity to have the funds to fix it. Plus, no one knew really how you were going to fix it. It was a National Historic Landmark, so it was protected. I drove by it. I finally thought they were going to have to tear it down because it was so neglected. But a friend invited me to go see it in 2016. I went inside. It was black, raining inside, tens of thousands of pigeons. It was like a movie, like, I don't know, Sicily or Havana. And I thought, I'm supposed to buy a church. I bought a church. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But I wanted to do something that would give back to San Francisco, to a place that really helped me build a life. And I thought, well, what could we do? What makes us who we are? And we decided to create, instead of Catholicism, art would be the religion. Art, I believe, is sort of what defines us and makes us human. It's potentially what we leave behind. It's hopefully the best of us. And so it's art in all of its forms. And it really is that connective tissue and a community for people to support working artists and to celebrate art in our lives. Here you can see the inside of it. Every ounce of it had to be restored. It took a team of plasterers from Ireland came and lived in San Francisco to restore the plasterwork for 6 months. Those bears were part of the original exhibit at the church. That's Audra McDonald performing. We have robust programming if you're in San Francisco. I know the Bloombergs have been. St. Joseph's is a wonderful place. Please come, please visit. It's open, and you're welcome to join us anytime. Our friend Murad getting married at the church. Perhaps the most really deeply personal place is the Mary Heaton Vorse house, which is directly across the street from ours in Provincetown. It's built in 1760. It's one of the last sea captain's houses that Kibbe Cook lived in this house. I used to be afraid of it because it was so forlorn and it was filled with men who fished sometimes and drank most of the time. And I would look at it and think it was a spooky house, and never did I think that I would buy it. But Mary Heaton Vorse, a labor rights and civil rights activist, lived in this house from 1907. And her granddaughters came to me and said, "We know you love Provincetown. Would you help save our grandmother's house?" So we purchased the house. We turned it back sort of over to the community, creating an adjunct to St. Joseph's called the Provincetown Art Society. It has 8 beds for artists to come and stay, knowing that housing is difficult in P-Town, and it's become a true community space. So we took it apart. It was so rotten, you couldn't jack the house up to even put a foundation under it. They had to hand dig it. Every board had to come up and be put back down. all that plaster had to be replaced. That's actually new plaster on those walls. But we kept it as like anything, like every floorboard, we didn't touch them. They came up and went back. The kitchen is an utter recreation because it was rusty metal 1970s cabinets and linoleum glued down floors. So the artisan who helped do the restoration took all the old parts from the house and put the kitchen together with it. We also have events there. Please come and visit. That's Rufus Wainwright performing this past summer. I think I made it to the end. Wow! So, thank you.
Ken, congratulations. That's an amazing portfolio. And I, too, was wondering how we were doing that in 121 slides
I was like,
in 20 minutes. So thank you. I'm intrigued by what would our little Virginia kid think looking at that presentation a few decades later?
just two decades later. When we hosted our book launch, this most recent book, we were supposed to, because some projects don't happen, we were on top of the Chrysler building where we've designed and even built out the interiors of what's called the Cloud Club. There was a big conflict at the Chrysler building, and now it's sitting there sort of waiting to find out what's going to happen. So I don't know if that project's going to happen, but a long-winded way to answer your question, A.B. Rosen was the guy who owned that building at the time, and here I am, like that kid, standing on top of the Chrysler building with A.B. Rosen, and he says to me, like, Ken, when you were a little kid, did you ever think you would like be standing on out on the terrace on the Chrysler building overlooking New York? And I said, yes, absolutely. That's all I thought about. So in some ways, I'm sort of gobsmacked by it. You know, I think I said this yesterday, but my mother would have told me never to get too big for your britches. And, you know, I believe that, so it's a weird thing. Yes, I totally thought I was supposed to go do all of those things. I didn't know it would be a job, and I didn't know, but I did think I was meant to go have some crazy life, yet I'm still sort of in awe of it all, and I hope it never changes me.
Well, you did start several pieces with never did I ever think. So
Yeah, I mean,
yes and no, right?
It's true. I mean, I didn't think I'd come back to Boston and do work here. I didn't think like I would buy that church or that sort of thing, but I did think like that plane, I definitely thought that I would be like that.
So cool.
Yeah.
I also realized looking at these projects, listening to you, doing a little research, that this is more than what I would have thought of as interior design. It's art, it's architecture, it's design, it's many disciplines coming together.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, at what point in your career were you realizing you were doing all of these disciplines? Or was that also part of that 6-year-old kid going, of course I'm going to do all of these things?
It was definitely the latter. It was always, we were never, you know, I never worked for another designer. I was never trained, as I said. In the beginning, I didn't hire any other designers. I think, one, I didn't want to be told what I was doing wrong, but I also didn't want someone else. I'm like, we're not that. Like, I used to, you know, get invited to go to design things, and I never really participated, one, because I was busy, but two, I didn't see it like I was part of an industry. I was like just doing this creative thing, and from the very beginning, we did everything for people. Like, I would pick out your tie to wear on CNN, or I would plan that dinner party, or, you know, sure, we would, you know, design the house or the plane or the boat, or, and it wasn't, it was too hard to pinpoint into like, this is what you do. So I always had a hard time when asked like, you know, what's your job description? I mean, now we just say like creative director, because it's nebulous enough to try to describe the things that we do. You know, inside my company, we have a robust like art department, we have an editorial director because we have to spend so much time like thinking about words and how they apply, and when we're going to help build a website, what that's going to be. We have a floral department. We have an experience department. We have accounting and warehousing and all of those things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Also early on, you focused on the role of words as your form of creative expression. I'm wondering what you attribute that to. We are kind of in a library, so I'm just wondering if there's any synergy with reading or what you got from your parents or your family that contributes to that.
I was an English and a history major. I find it like cathartic and painful to write, but I like to write. And so the books that we do have out, I wrote them, and we also have some children's books from a long time ago that I wrote. And so words weren't just like me blathering on. They were writing and, of course, reading as someone as a lover of history and being, sort of surrounded by it. It was not a casual thing. It's sort of deeply rooted in who I am and who our business is.
You mentioned history just now, and I think in much of the images of your work, I see a respect for history. Maybe it's the history of a property or a period in time. I'm just wondering how present is that to you? It clearly shows up in the preservation opportunities, but in developing an aesthetic, are there particular periods in history that you find especially inspirational, or does it vary by the project?
I was talking with Ron earlier, just that, we never repeat ourselves. Someone told me, no wonder you love your job. You're like a serial entrepreneur, because every job we take, I'm like, we've never done it before. We haven't. So and I don't want a job to ever look like, I don't want you to come into your friend's house and be like, oh, he put that same sofa in mine. I'm like, what? Why? I would never. So every job is really like the first time we've done it, because it is. And if we have a secret sauce, like why I think our work is successful or people relate to it, is it's always this mix. I think I always have historical references, periods in time, even if they're like, whether they're real or imagined, that become part of this narrative. We want to take and create spaces that feel somehow familiar to people, that they might, they may reference, 1920s Deco era Paris, but it would never be pure. Like, you have to sort of layer in as if things have happened over time, so that you create something that's like utterly fresh. And it is that tension that I think creates the spark that makes people excited. Like, if you look at Contessa as an example, when I first started talking about it, I'm like, it's like you're in Lake Como. It's sort of this Italian lake era, but we're on top of a building in Boston overlooking the public gardens. And so how do you take that? And that's the almost cinematic part when it's like a movie pitch where you're talking about, imagine Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. And so our projects have that kind of arc to them. And I think that's what makes them relatable yet exciting. I don't ever want someone to come into a space we've created and feel like, wow, this is beautiful, but I don't know if I could like hang out there.
So if you are looking at history or preservation, there's probably a research point where you're making sure you understand the full opportunity.
Sure. We do lots and lots and lots of research. And so we're doing a historic hotel in San Francisco on top of Nob Hill called the Huntington, which Nob Hill used to have the sort of 4 big mansions of the people the robber barons who lived there, and just the depth that we go to understand. It's part of the storytelling, but it also brings into the fabrics of everything we do. And so I think that also feeds my own personal love of history.
Are there any either surprising, horrifying, or surprising, joyful things that you found in research on a specific project?
Sure. We all now find that, some of these characters that were, you look at the Algonquin Club, it's a club built for men, you know, and just by its nature, our society has changed, and the things that were the norm then seem sort of egregious to us now. Even the name, we had to think about the name, the Algonquin Club. Could we keep it? At first, I really wanted to keep it, but we were also being sensitive to be like, well, what relationship do we actually have to the Algonquin people? And are we, you know, it's a historic name. So it was a big debate. And we went back and forth. And so we wanted to keep an element of it, thus the Quinn. But you see a lot of that. But I'm not someone who wants to erase it. I think you have to own it and appreciate it, learn from it, because we are who we are.
If we change it entirely, we've lost the opportunity
Yes.
to learn from the past. We've erased it, which does further damage.
Yes.
Whereas if we preserve it, bring it forward, but update it in
Yeah.
a way, which is what I see in your work. The wedding experiences feel like those, oh my God, those were like doing an entire movie script or a movie set or a production of some sort.
It was that particular wedding. He had asked me, I had done something for him. I didn't know him that well. And he had asked me, we don't do events just randomly. Someone call us and say, would you throw my bar mitzvah? Well, it's not the sort of thing we do, but we'll do them for clients. And so he asked me if I would like do his wedding, and I asked him about what he wanted to do, and he said he wanted to get married in the oldest redwood forest on the planet, and he wanted to know the diameter of the redwood trees. So we went around the California coast trying to find the largest old-growth redwood, for real, measuring redwood trees.
I hope there are pictures of that.
Yeah, oh, there are. But he told me he thought he just wanted to get married in a magical forest. So, without any other input, we created a storybook that was maybe 3 foot by 5 foot. It was huge. All hand-drawn, colorized, like once upon a time that you opened. And we imagined that it was the remnants of an ancient abbey that was deep in this forest. And one night only did it come back to life. And so we had Hollywood people come and create, we had fairies flying through the forest. It was insane. And so we had the crazy gates that remained that were 28 feet tall with stone pillars and all of these things. And so I fly to New York, I sat with him, and we open this on the table and we go through it, and he starts asking me questions like, how tall is the bridge? And I'm like, I don't know, we're just making this up. I have no idea. And I don't even know if we can do any of this. And that was in February. This wedding took place June 1. We built a lake. We built like a real stone bridge it's immense. Wow. And again, all of that activity, we were shut down. TMZ reported, it was all kinds of crazy stuff happened. I readily could have gone bankrupt, but just because all you could do was like go fast and spend money, and there wasn't even time. Like if he ever said no, I would be in such dire straits. But the night of the wedding, after a couple of big days of parties with rock stars and like Sting sang the wedding song, to give you an idea, he gets up. And instead of thanking his bride, he said, everything you see here this evening is because of one man. And he thanked her. I was like, don't thank me. Thank your
that's
wife.
a wedding speech.
But they're still happily married. They have a beautiful family.
See them often.
And we still do many projects for him.
I am struck also in the images, the role that flowers, plants, both in the wedding, but in many of the spaces, that's a way of adding to the design or being part of the design.
So we have a real floor. It's called Mr. Fulk's Flower Factory. We do flowers for clients at their homes. So we will flower your house on a weekly basis. We will send flowers for my friends at Dior occasionally, that sort of thing. But it's because when I was a little boy, I couldn't let lunch just happen. I had to climb on the step stool and get out the china because I'm like, we have to use the china. And I would go cut the flowers and arrange them. I was that wackadoodle little kid. And it just still is part of what we do. And so it is just ingrained. It makes no sense. People are like, you do the most spectacular flowers. We lose tons of money doing flowers because it doesn't, we just do them because I won't accept them any other way. But it's just beauty. It adds beauty and joy, and so what if you lose a little bit of money? You make it up somewhere else.
Yeah, because this listening to you, this sounds like it's a work of passion. It is joyful more than a job.
Oh, it's utterly who I am. There's no job to it. It's just life.
And so the question of work-life balance is probably a wrong question,
Yeah,
right?
no, there is none. No, it's all one big thing.
So maybe something that helps with that is your dogs.
My dogs. We can talk about that. That's a whole other hour of conversation.
The audience will kill me if I don't ask you about them.
Sure.
Where are they now? How are they doing?
Where are they now?
Who are the current ones?
They are all in California. They make their way across from San Francisco to Provincetown once a year. So they come in May, and we've stayed as late as December, the migration. We've always had golden retrievers. Somehow we ended up with white golden retrievers, not on purpose. Now there are lots of them in Provincetown. I like to think we started a trend, but we call them the polar bears because they were just these big, giant white dogs. It sounds weird. We've had as many as 5 dogs, which is crazy because we got 2 at once. Don't ever have 3 dogs and get 2 puppies. We went from having not even a dog walker to having like an Excel spreadsheet as to like who pooped when and who can eat here, and it was insane.
Well, you're in trouble when they outnumber you, I think.
So now we have 3. We lost a dog this summer, which was a very sad thing, as it always is. But they are great. They make me a better person. I'm an anal retentive nut who would be unbearable left to my own devices, but having a messy husband who can't put the toothpaste cap back on or has to pull a t-shirt out of the middle of the pile, and dogs that, slobber and are so much hair that you have to relent. I don't have kids, and I think kids kind of do that to you as well. The joy of just some chaos in your life that you have to just sink in and relish the happiness of it. And it makes me such a better person.
And they have contributed to the business side of things as well.
They have made an appearance. We do make beautiful dog collars, by the way. And they kind of are my Instagram account. It's pretty much just dog pictures.
Yeah. I think there's more in your Instagram than just the dogs.
Well, a few.
Yeah. I'm going to ask 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll open it up for audience. So please be thinking of what you would like to ask Ken. And just a reminder that questions at BPL do end with a question mark. So just keep that in mind as you phrase your thoughts. I am struck by how much you move in the world of wealth because of who your clients are. And it's joyful to hear that you've restored a church and turned it into a community organization from an art purpose. You also give back in Provincetown through the Mary Vorse House and other causes. Is there a balance that you're trying to strike there too?
I mean, it's weird. I work for some of the richest people in the world, and it's staggering to be around and to see it. I never normalize it. I recognize how sort of other it is. I like to think that I work with the best rich people in the world because they're, for the most part, the one privilege of doing this for long enough and having enough of a reputation that you can have a no asshole rule, excuse my language, to work, which is a great privilege. So you don't work for people who aren't nice. And so they all have to be kind. And the one just human thing about it, without exception, all of them, even with the fancy planes and the boats and the extravagant houses, so much of it, which this might be hard to believe, and I mean, sure, but it's really not status that drives them for these things. It's the understanding that, and that's the connection with me, that we only have so much time on this planet. If you're going to do something with your money, Like to be able to imprint those memories, to have not just time with your family, but to be able to have extraordinary time or beautiful little intimate moments. And we become sort of the facilitator of that so that it's not by happenstance. So if you have, if you have that fancy plane and you're trying to get your kids to go and be excited to go to Argentina, to where you're from, and it's such a long trip, and they're going to go, and you got to convince them because now they have all these friends and they're in college and they don't want to go do all these things. So it's almost like, I remember a client said to me, Ken, I don't care what you do at the house. I just want to have the coolest house that any of my friends amongst their kids, because I want them to come to my house because I want to see my kids. And if I don't have the coolest house, they're going to go somewhere else. So it's like a hook. And, maybe I'm Pollyanna about it, but I really think so much of what that wealth gets spent for, at least with me, is for like goodness. And they're all deeply generous people. Yes, we live in a world full of inequity, and it's insane to see people who have so much. And I don't live that way. I live a really privileged life, but as you can see, we live in a crooked little cottage by the sea. I live in a funky mid-century house. I don't live on a grand scale. I don't diminish that I have a lot in my life. But I don't know. It is something that I think about. I think it's sort of exciting. But it's not lost on me, I should say.
Well, I'll take you back as my final question in this section to the title that you gave for your talk, which is Designing a Life Well Lived. I was wondering whether that was the life of your clients or your own life and your own family's life.
I think they're one and the same. Yeah. I think my desire, and it never was about control, but my desire as a 6-year-old kid to like set that dinner table or be in charge of every holiday. It wasn't that I was like bossy or that I'm like, I know best. I wanted you to have the best time you could possibly have. And I'm like, wouldn't it be better if we did this? We have to have music, cut down the lights. Huh? Like, it's gonna be so much nicer. Why would you eat a sandwich standing at the counter? And so it's the same thing. And now it's like my life's calling and I get to do that for other people. But I still do it for myself and my family and my friends. And
they are social and communal exercises,
utterly,
whether they're clubs or experiences. So I think that theme is very much strongly there too. Let us bring the lights up in the room. And we have 2 staff members, one in each aisle, who have microphones. So if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone to come to you, as we are indeed recording this program today. We have a question here in front, and then another question over on the left. And I'd like to take both questions at once and then have Ken respond. That way we'll get a few more in. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. In your slides, you do a wonderful job of rejecting minimalism, both in your color and in the textures that you use. And so I was curious, please tell me more about your relationship with editing and maximalism, and how do you learn how to avoid doing too much in a project?
Sure.
Great. And we'll take the second question and then have Ken respond.
Hi. You have done such an incredible sort of portfolio of work. If you had a magic wand and you could sort of, at a snap of a finger, visit a space or an experience or a moment that you've created, what would that be?
Okay.
So one is a thesis on minimalism and editing, right?
We do. It's fun to show. Probably most of the projects that I've shown here were definitely, extravagant. We do all sorts of work. We do contemporary work. We do traditional work, historic work. But I do sort of reject the idea that, even in my own house, when I first restored the tree house, it felt like a temple. And I was almost afraid to bring anything into it because it was so sort of pure and the architecture was so strong. And a friend encouraged me. They're like, well, of course you have to. Like, you have to muck it up and make it. And it's a fine line. I think so much of my job is about editing. In my work, I'm the constant critic because I have to come in, I make sure I tell everyone, this is extraordinary, and now I have to tell you everything that's wrong with it. Because I go through and it's that, 5, 7, 10% that we have to fix. And, it's one of those things, I don't think there's a firm answer as to, when is it too much? It's like one of those, it when you see it. You get better at it, and I think when I go through spaces that we've done, I'm always doing this, of course, but, I look at it and I always want to do better. And so I think that lifelong journey of the edit, but I'm not our very first book had in Latin across it, which was really sort of a mantra for me, and that was, fear is the enemy of good design, because I think so often people are afraid, especially like individuals. We all are, like even me when I'm doing my own spaces and you don't have a sounding board, you're sort of like, oh, should I do this? I don't want to do that. And, because you're afraid of what other people are going to think or it's not going to look like, we find ourselves becoming beige. And so I think it's practice in some ways, and it's innate in others.
Might that differ by the client and their wishes?
Sure. We have jobs like the one I showed you where a project where the clients, literally, I bought that house for them. We went into a very prolonged construction project. 4.5 years, they never saw the house. So we have that sort of insane job. And then I have jobs where, every step of the way, clients are involved, they touch, they feel, and I become, I'm the interpreter. So, often with a traditional like husband and wife scenario where he may have a very different idea than she may have, and how do you listen to them both? How do you become that sort of interpreter for what they want? And so it's a mix, and you get good at it, and you get, I think if I have a skill beyond the design thing, it's relationships, about caring for the people deeply that I work with and learning to speak the same language, so to speak, so that I can be trusted by them and do a good job, that it feels, because it's not about me. They're not just hiring, like, I don't want it to be like, oh, Ken Fulk did your house. It's your house, and I created something for you that's representative of you and your family, not me.
I'm not sure that some of your work isn't recognizable as Ken Fulk, though.
Well,
so.
Yeah.
The second question was about this favorite or place to
To
go.
my own space or to any space?
Any space that you've created or any experience that you've created.
Wow. Since you've seen them, I wouldn't mind going back. Like when we were all at that wedding, and coming down through the redwoods where all of the handrails were hand carved by artisans, literally through hundreds of acres of forest. We employed so many people. Many of us, like you cry. It was like the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen. And it was almost unbelievable that it was real. And this brigadoon-like quality that you knew it was going to disappear. Which made it all the more special. To go back there and see it one more time, it's wonderful to see it in pictures, but, and that was a long time ago. That was 12 years ago, and it's still like, I can't freaking believe we did that. And also because you saw it, that house that we took 4.5 years to build, where every single thing was drawn in my studio, everything handmade, and it was a deeply beautiful house, very soulful, custom made, every doorknob, every piece of hardware. But it's now owned by someone else that I've met them. They're digging out the downstairs, putting in a pool and recreate, and that's okay. But I think if I could step back in there one more time, and because it's probably like one of the prettiest houses I've ever been in, not just because we did it, but it was so wonderful. And to walk, like, you know, those are the floors you wanted to walk on barefoot because this sort of the perfectly imperfectness of it all. I think that would be it.
We'll take 2 more questions if we have them. We have 2 right down in front, 3 right down in front. So maybe I'll take those 3, and if we have time for 1 more up top, we will do that as well.
David, we did have a question in the middle.
Oh, great. Sorry, the lights are very blinding, so go right ahead. We'll take that then.
Hi, thank you for that wonderful talk. You're wearing a beautiful suit. I love it. Would you mind telling us where you had it made?
Sure.
It's costume design as well.
Again, when I was a little kid, I would walk, because we lived in a tiny town and lived on Main Street, and I would walk down Main Street to Charles Matthias, that was the local haberdasher, and I would pick out my little blue blazers and my buttons. I was that weird, like literally, and where I got that, I have no idea. And my parents didn't know either. I was like, and so that remains today. This suit was made by a man who became a friend named Tom Brown, who makes a lot of clothes and now has become very renowned in probably the greatest American menswear designer. He does design women's clothes too. And I just have a love of dressing up. I dress up almost every day because, 1, I like it. 2, I think you have to look the part, you know. Again, talking last night, we had a little reception. You know, I grew up being told it's not polite to talk about yourself, and then here I have this business that's my name, and you know, all you do all day long is talk about yourself, and it's this weird, like, you know, easily can become egomaniacal and all of this. But somehow, because I do love to dress up, it's almost like I can be that guy. I can put on the suit and the bow tie. I feel good. You know, you walk onto a plane, they're like, I love your suit. You look great. And it makes you feel good. I think it makes other people feel good, but it also makes me prepared to feel like I can play that part and be that person.
We'll take the questions down here if we can, and we have 1 more up top. I want to take a few more because we will run out of time quickly if we can at once. Priscilla, our former board chair. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much for creating such beauty and experience for people. I'm really wondering about how you think about space, the space that needs to be between objects and people, or the relationships that are created. So when you think about this is going to be a conversational area, this is going to be a bedroom, this is going to be a pool, how do you think about space?
Sure.
Great.
It's, we're going to do multiples. I forgot.
Yep, just to keep going to your right. Yep. And then 3 back. Right.
Oh, cool. So my question is similar to one that Mr. Leonard had asked earlier about keeping things fresh, but I know there's only so many like different couches and different brands of couches. Like, how do you keep track of historical periods and like what certain types of furniture that you make or you put into these different houses or historical projects and keep it fresh and unique while also making sure that everyone has unique experiences in that place?
And 3 rows back down to.
Okay, you're going to test my.
I'm writing them down.
My recall.
I'm writing them down, so we're good. Isn't this fun? Sorry.
Ken, I was just wondering, outside of American and European culture, is there another culture's sense of beauty and art and artisanship that attracts you or inspires you?
Ready. Okay.
Space, freshness, and
space is an interesting
global
thing for me because as someone who isn't trained, so I can't draw something, I don't have computer skills. Yes, I have teams of people now that can help me with that. I do think it's a little bit of a gift, maybe, that I intuitively understand them and understand how people want and need to relate to one another. If it's something on a table, I don't know why, but I literally, in spaces that do not belong to me, will secretly go in and rearrange things because I know how they should work better. And like literally, I would go into like a library and like rework the shelves. I won't do it here. Wouldn't that create chaos? And so I don't know that I have a true answer other than it like feels right and I'm oddly good at it. I think about it all the time. Like it is integral, it's not an accident. And so, how close these chairs might want to be. There's the practical thing. I need to be able to put down a drink. I want to be able to turn and talk to someone. I want enough closeness that we can hear one another, yet I want enough distance to not feel like, in case we don't know one another that well, that I'm too intimately close. Then there's the practical things of, we do restaurants where every square foot matters and how many people you can squeeze in, yet still. And so it is a very dynamic thing. I think, sure, on furniture plans, and we spend so much time massaging spaces, building spaces, thinking about clearance. But at the end of the day, I will come into a complete project where we have spent years building it and considering every square inch of it and readjust it, because in real life it doesn't feel the way that it did on paper. And so, there's yes, it's deeply considered, but some of it is like, and also some of it's the people. Like in your house, we may want to have a little bit of a different situation than your house. And so some of it is project by project. As to the items that fill a house and how do you not sort of just hit the repeat button, and how do you find the right things for the right places? And a majority of what we do, we either make, so a lot of what we do is custom made for every project. So that kind of takes the guessing work out of it. And then we love supporting, we also design lighting and furniture and wallpaper and all of that with partners. So we have our own to consider. And then really supporting artisans. They're, I think, one of the greatest privileges I have. I work with some of the most talented people in the world, and but also as a broader network of incredible furniture designers, mill workers, and they all want to be like, we sort of challenge one another because, again, even if I gave you the same chair that I gave Katie in her apartment, I wouldn't want it to there might be that nice familiarity, but I'm going to make sure that yours is utterly different for you. And it is a challenge. I also think a lot about, we live in a world where, we don't need more stuff. And so how do you justify that? I love to sort of upcycle things. I love old things, reinventing them. That was such a treat at the Quinn to take that historic furniture and not just craft more stuff. But I also love supporting people that are working and making beautiful things. And so it's a dance.
And our global inspiration question.
Global inspiration. To use some of it, it's constant. I get to travel for a living. I spend more days, I think, on a plane than I do on the ground. The floors in that 4.5-year project that you saw, the floors in the kitchen were inspired by a trip to India. I went on a 3-week trip from the tip to the tail of India and was just, overwhelmed by inspiration in so many photographs. And that floor is literally from at least 1,000 years old. And that pattern, it's sort of this great zigzag pattern that I'm like, it looked like it could have been 2026. And instead it was maybe 1006 or something. And isn't that exciting? And, I think the more travel is an incredible thing. I was just listening to something talking about the privilege of having a passport, because when you think about building good humans and being good citizens of the world and understanding other people and cultures, you know, the privilege of having that and being able to go and see and live and experience in those places. And so it is deeply important to me, makes me a better designer, but probably more importantly, makes me a better human.
Well, we're coming close to time, so we'll take one final question from the back, and then we'll invite Ron up to the podium for the last piece of our program.
I was hoping you would talk for just a minute about Muttville,
Oh,
what
yeah.
that process, how that came to be, and what that process was like.
So Muttville, for those who don't know, is a wonderful organization. I met a woman maybe 20 years ago in San Francisco. She originally was like sort of a hairdresser to the stars, and she had a great love of animals and wanted to help and rescue animals, and she did so in her own home. And she knew the most vulnerable of animals in her world, dogs in particular, were the senior dogs, the dogs that, you know, maybe their owner had died, maybe their owner had to go into assisted living and no longer could take a pet, maybe someone just gave up on a dog, and, you know, they're 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 years old, and she didn't want to think of them just not having that good last, like, for me, the best part of a dog's lives are when they're puppies and when they're old, because you just can't love on them enough. And so she created an organization called Muttville, which is a senior dog rescue. I was on the board of the San Francisco SPCA, and we had an old, it sort of looked like a science fiction nightmare of an old building that we didn't know what to do with, because we had built a beautiful new hospital and adoption center for the SPCA. And she was my friend, and we leased it to her to run Muttville out of this building, and she brought new life into it, and she rescued countless senior dogs, and also a program where you could foster them. Flash forward, this woman, who is an extraordinary person, her name is Sherry Franklin, came up with the idea for a modern day animal shelter. It's cage-free. It's where it sort of disrupts all the norms of what you think about an animal shelter might be, and it is only for senior dogs. Because of my relationship, we supported it, we designed it with her, and created these sort of just beautiful, happy spaces. If you want to go have a good day, come visit San Francisco. You'll probably go home with a dog. Go to Muttville, and it's filled with these. It has a beautiful, like, beauty salon. They all come in. They get beautified. They're all running around everywhere, sleeping on sofas from my warehouse. And, you know, we created these things called the Painted Ladies that look like the iconic buildings in San Francisco, where you go in and you can hang out with your potential new dog. And it's just like joy and goodness. And she's like a visionary who really single-handedly raised all that money and did that. And I'm just privileged to get to help there. And it's been received tons of accolades. And I really do think it will change the adoption model for animal welfare.
I think we're sneaking in a last question.
How much time you have right now?
I have a flight at like 5:30.
Well, just to the final segment of our program, Ron Druker is well recognized as a leader in real estate, architecture, and design communities, long-standing family connection to this library. His contributions to civic life and cultural institutions in Boston are numerous and meaningful. Ron, please lead us through the last part of our
Thanks,
program.
David. I now understand what you were talking about. You can't see a thing out there. Thank you all for coming. Just by way of background, for those of you who don't know, my grandfather built the Orient Heights Library at a time in the early part of the 20th century when that was really good business to have the credit of Boston on a lease. I ultimately gave it back to the library in '86. The idea of endowing this series really came from the celebration of the 100th anniversary of our firm, founded by my grandfather, John Druker, and continued by Bert Druker. We will be celebrating next year our 125th anniversary, and David and I were talking about perhaps, I don't know what we can do to surpass today. So some observations about Ken, whom I met last night for the first time. You've got quite a mind. And I don't know if you noticed how articulate Ken is. Being able to speak in sentences, being able to speak without verbal pauses, you know, is unique, as he says, Somebody once said, if you enjoy what you're doing, you never work a day in your life.
Amen.
Clearly, an example of that is Ken Fulk. I think that being able to live your dream that you established for yourself as a child and continuing it as an adult, so I'm not so sure that you really are. You shouldn't be, because you'd lose your creativity. But those are some observations, and I would say finally, before I lift the award, the no assholes rule is a rule which we have on the other side of the equation when we hire professionals. What both of us do, you're working with your clients and are working not only with our professionals, but going through a public process, it's hard. It's hard. You have to be a little bit of a rabbi and a shrink between married couples.
For sure.
We have to work with communities, and because we're in the trenches, both of us, with either our professionals or our clients, you can't be around people whom you don't enjoy, because it's tough. So you are really a unique guy, and as you said to me last night, and I concurred for myself, we're lucky. And that old expression, I'd rather be lucky than good, in this case, Ken is lucky because he's good. So thank you so much.
I know. Wow. You did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, I think other people might have been scared by this. For me, it's perfect.
And by the way, thank you all for being here. The real purpose of what this series is supposed to be is opening up an opportunity for people from the street, as it were, to be exposed to people like Ken and Maya Lin and Bill Ron and, you know, Bob Stern and the others who've been part of this. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.